Think about childhood today. Safety-proofed corners, scheduled playdates, an entire world built to protect and comfort. You probably don't think twice about it. But what if you were born 1,000 years ago, into the raw, unforgiving world of the Vikings? For a child back then, survival wasn't a guarantee. It was a game where the odds were stacked against you from your very first breath. Here's why your modern assumptions about childhood wouldn't have kept you alive. The first and most brutal filter was birth itself. In the Viking Age, life was fragile. Our best estimates, pieced together from difficult evidence like burial sites, suggest that infant mortality was incredibly high. In some places, perhaps 20 to 30% of children didn't make it to their first birthday. Disease, brutal winters, and a complete lack of modern medicine meant that a child's life could be extinguished in an instant. But it wasn't just nature you had to worry about. There was a cultural reality, documented in later sagas and law codes, known as setting out. A father had the legal right to reject a newborn, leaving it outside to die. This wasn't necessarily born of cruelty, but the grim math of survival in a world of scarce resources. If a family couldn't feed another mouth, or if a child was born with a deformity, exposure was a recognized, if terrible, option. For a baby to be accepted, the father had to formally acknowledge it. Only then was the child given a name and considered part of the family. To survive infancy wasn't just luck. It was to win the first and hardest lottery of your life. But for those who won that lottery, what came next was not play. It was work. Imagine your school was the farm, your playground was the forest, and your only homework was keeping your family from starving. This was the world of a Viking child. There were no schools in the modern sense. Instead, children were seen as apprentices to the adults around them, and they were expected to contribute as soon as they were physically able. Their education was entirely practical, learned by watching, and then by doing. A small child might be tasked with gathering firewood, scattering grain for the chickens, or watching the fire. There was no concept of being lazy. In Norse sagas and folktales, there's a recurring character called the Kolbitur, or charcoal chewer, a boy who does nothing but sit by the hearth, seen as useless until he finally performs some great deed. It was a story with a clear lesson. Work was how you earned your place. Life wasn't about being a child for very long. It was about becoming a functional adult as quickly as possible. As children grew, their education became more specialized, and it was largely divided by gender. A boy would learn the world of his father. He'd work the farm, learn to track and hunt, and master the ways of the sea, how to fish and how to sail. He'd also wrestle, run, and swim, not just for fun, but as training for a world where strength and endurance were essential for survival. Archaeologists find small wooden swords and toy boats, and they suggest that even a child's play was just a rehearsal for the adult world they were about to enter. A girl, in turn, learned the skills of her mother. Her domain was the longhouse. She would learn how to manage the home, preserve food for the winter, and most importantly, how to make textiles. Spinning wool, weaving cloth, and sewing clothes were not hobbies. They were vital, time-consuming technologies. Miniature spinning whorls found in the ground are interpreted by archaeologists as tools for young girls to practice these intricate tasks from an early age. For both, the lesson was the same. Learn the skills that keep your family alive, and you might just stay alive yourself. But here's the part of the story nobody expects. While their lives were full of labor, Viking children also had a surprising degree of independence. This wasn't free-range parenting. This was a freedom born from necessity. Bold, self-reliant behavior was valued. Children were expected to manage themselves, learn from their own, often painful, mistakes, and build a core of resilience. Sometimes, a child would even be sent to live with another family as a fosterling. This wasn't a failure of love. It was a formal contract, a way to build powerful alliances between families and allow a child to learn a specific trade or skill. These foster bonds could become as strong or even stronger than blood. It points to a world that modern humans have almost completely abandoned. A world where the community, not just two parents, was responsible for raising the next generation. A Viking childhood was not about nurturing the innocence of a child. It was about forging a functional adult. It was a world where practical skill was everything, and the idea of a carefree, protected childhood simply did not exist. Life was a relentless cycle of work, duty, and survival. And here's the part that should unsettle our modern ideas. Don't confuse this brutal reality with the trendy Viking parenting you might read about online. That's about resilience and outdoor play in a world that is fundamentally safe. The real thing was far more demanding. You weren't just playing in the mud, you were working in it to survive. What part of a Viking childhood do you think you'd struggle with the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to subscribe